Three, two, one. Welcome, one and all. My name is Donato, and welcome to today's podcast, vlogcast, everything cast here in the UK. But I've got a very special guest who's come all the way from Singapore. Well, when I say all the way from Singapore, we are the joys of the internet. We can connect all over the world. So it's a very special guest here to talk about the power of now, mindfulness. Welcome to the show, Ned Phillips.
Thank you, Donato. I appreciate that. You're right. It used to be all the way from Singapore, but we all live in Zoom now. So we're literally next door neighbors.
Exactly, Ned. I've got to be a big thank you. I know you're a very, very busy man, CEO of a wonderful fintech company over in Singapore. So I really do appreciate the time you've taken to come on here. And yeah, the power of now in terms of, I did see you on that wonderful TEDx talk where you spoke about that. And then for me, obviously, a lot of the running that I do is all about mindfulness and being in the moment. And for yourself, I mean, I'll just give a quick background to those who are watching, listening. For Ned, having, I think, when you're in your mid-20s, you took up the challenge of running 100K. Just like that, when you're in Hong Kong, you just went out and ran 100K, and you said 18 hours and you enjoyed it. And then moving over to Singapore and doing the running around the island of Singapore, but also a big thing for yourself where you'd done various Ironman challenges, but it got to the point where you wanted to qualify for Kona, but you couldn't, but then something suddenly changed, qualified for Kona. Absolutely brilliant. And obviously you're now doing other challenges as well. But tell us a bit about how, Ned, did you get started in this endurance sphere? Obviously, I did forget to mention the mountain bike across Mongolia as well, wasn't there? And how did you get started in this? Because for those who are watching, listening, they'll probably think, how in heaven's name do you go from sort of zero to doing 100K running around the whole island of Singapore? How did you get started in this, Ned?
Yeah, look, I appreciate the intro. Thank you, Donato. And you're right. I think it's when I listen back to the different activities I've done, it clearly, I mean, I know I'm addicted to endurance. And when you hear it spoken by someone else, it makes it even clearer. And, it's always hard. Perspective's incredibly hard from your own point of view. So how did I start? Genuinely, I'll never forget this guy, Justin Hodge, stood up in the office in Hong Kong and said, who would like to run a 100K race? And as I said in my TED Talk, something in my brain said yes. But what is it that made me say that? And thinking about it, I know I didn't talk about this on the TED Talk, but as a kid, we lived in the middle of the countryside in Scotland, and I walked 2 miles to school and 2 miles home every day at the age of 4.
So that's endurance for a child, that is.
And I didn't really think about it at the time. We lived in the countryside. My school was 2 miles away. My parents worked. That was the deal, right? So, if you think about it, that's what, 6K a day, 30K a week, 30 weeks a year. It's 1,000K from the age of 4. So I suppose by the time I was 18, 14 years, I've already done 14,000. I mean, I was never a runner at school. I was a very poor sportsman. I have no hand-eye ball coordination. Yeah. I did a bit of skiing. I tried to ski a lot. But I think when I was in Hong Kong, honestly, what struck me really quickly was the guy who stood up was a really charismatic guy. And I could tell he was going to do something exciting. And when he said, let's run 100K, I really wasn't running. But I like people. I like being with people. And he struck me as a guy that would do some fun stuff. And if that fun stuff meant 100K, okay, whatever, let's do it. And we started training in the hills. So I think it was a combination of, I don't want to call it base training, but, just walking a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
Love being with people. And this guy made it sound amazing. I'm a sales guy. He's a sales guy. Easiest person to sell to is a sales guy. He sold it as this amazing adventure. And when we started doing it, this other guy turned up called Rob, who became my very close friend. South African. They were both South African, full of fun. And we started with 10K, 20K, 30K training days. Yeah. And it really was magical. For any of you who've not been to Hong Kong, it has some of the best trail running in the world.
It is fantastic. Yeah.
And very quickly, it just became this absorbing activity. And then what happened? The first time we tried it, we were like 4th team home out of 800 teams.
Wow. And
yes, I was like, oh, I like this. I
We're
like
quite good.
and we're not bad at it. And I think that's what really connected me, in that I enjoy it, I love the people, and I seem to be okay at it. Wow, let's keep doing this. And so that's how I got started.
Sounds absolutely brilliant, Ned. And don't apologize when you're talking about walking and you call that base training. One of my essential cross training for my marathon running is walking. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of walking. And I know we're going to talk the power of now, but the power of walking and how it builds. It's about time on feet. And I know that there's all sorts of training plans out there. And I think a lot of the certainly beginners endurance training is run walk. So walking is so don't apologize for that. It sounds quite amazing. So the 100K, I'll just again explaining to the listeners' views, I do hear of people who sign up for these endurance and just go out and do it without any training. So you did do the full training. Did you follow any specific training plan?
No, full training's a wild exaggeration. And
you did do some 10Ks and 20Ks, yeah?
We got into the hills. So Justin was a pretty organized guy, had to be a team of 4. Rob, who was one of my best friends, he was a young man who would often roll in we would do a 6 a.m. training run in the hills. He would often roll in from the bars to the training run, half drunk, but an innate endurance ability. And then when we turned up for race, so we probably did a couple of months of 20, 30K rambles through the hills, run, walk, running. And on the day, we needed another team member. So we kind of got one there. So no training plan, get out in the hills, have a crack. And then when the day came, it seemed to gel. So no training plans, no structure, bunch of guys having fun. And of the 3 of us, we're all still completely, even though we all live in different places, are part of endurance going forward. So I think it was good, the right people at the right time coming together, having a huge amount of fun. And that's what just powered me going forward from them. I ended up doing adventure racing with Rob a lot. We did a lot of other 100K runs and all of that time before I moved to Singapore.
Yeah. Now that race, did you say there was a team of 4? You ran together as a foursome?
Yeah, so the Macalhouse Trail,
it wasn't a relay or anything like that.
No, the Macalhouse Trail, or the Trail Walker, which is now, I believe, in the UK as well, is a 100K run through the hills, team of 4 together. And we'd done some adventure racing. We knew how that team dynamic worked. So yeah, all together at the same time.
So from your other endurance, did you find running as a team more powerful, more easier than when you're running on your own? Like having done Ironman, you're on your own. You're not even allowed to draft, are you, on bikes or anything? So do you find running as a team, competing as a team, more fulfilling than individual, or is it just you enjoy both in just a different way?
It's a great question. I think it's a time of life thing, and I think it's how you're doing. So, today I do all my running individually. I love people, right? So I love being part of a team, and I think, and again, it's a stage of life. I'm 53. When I was 20 and 30, I had a massive ego and I wanted to win. I feel very competitive, and we all like to win, right? And I didn't win much per se, but I wanted to do it. And our team was performing. So I loved being with that team. Like, seriously, I loved it because we were doing really well. We loved each other and had a great time. We really pushed. And these guys on the team, we ended up running with a lady called Rachel. Me, Rob, and Rachel, all of us, we had this simple philosophy. No one's going to whine. No complaining. We're always laughing. And if somebody says, I'm done, we knew, because we were all pretty committed mentally individuals. Like Rob went up to climb Everest, 7 summits. One of the first South Africans to climb 7 summits. Rachel's one of the toughest ladies I've ever met. So between us, we just knew. So that team truly was amazing. But I do think it's probably hard to find well-paced. So I think a team that is harmonious and works well is truly magical. I think finding that harmony. So I think it's too glib to say that running in a team is better or worse. If you find the perfect harmony of 3 people, 4 people who sync, it was amazing. And I think we were definitely better than the sum of our parts.
Yeah. That's exactly the point, is when you're together, coining a phrase, together as one, you work better as a unit than, as you say, individuals. Sounds absolutely, you've almost sold me, Ned. People keep telling me I should do an ultra. Maybe one day, maybe when I get a bit older, I might do one, but who knows? I might sign up for one soon. But
Awesome.
But obviously you went from Hong Kong and then you arrive in Singapore, and I've been to Singapore and I do love it's a fantastic place, lovely people. The same in Hong Kong as well, having been there, it's a fantastic place. But you get to Singapore, and I know it's a big island. Having worked in the Channel Islands myself and the Isle of Man, is there's these challenges on these islands where people sort of go around and mountain bike stuff. But you suddenly decided to run around Singapore, which is what, 125, 160 kilometers? How far is it?
135.
135. What possessed you to suddenly do that?
I
On
think
your own as well.
So I did it in 2004. So let me think. That's 16 years ago. So I was like 36, 37. I think I realized by then. So I have an addictive personality, right? I'm not going to call it A-type. I love winning. I think I'm a good loser. I hope I am. But I'm addicted. I have an addictive personality. And what I realized was, left to my own devices, I would just run all day.
So you could wake up at 2 a.m. and then run for the whole 24 hours. And
could I physically? I don't know. But my mind says to me, just keep going running, right? And I realized, and I was thinking about, we'll talk about backyard ultra later. Somebody said to me, so you just asked me what possessed me to do it. And we'll come on to mindfulness, because at this point, when I ran around Singapore, I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
But talking about backyard ultra to someone, he said, what possessed you? What are you thinking? What are you doing? It can, and I found him, he said, why is it fun? And I said, well, and I wasn't really thinking. And I said, well, it combines some of the things I love the most. People, I love being with people, running, competition, and sugar.
Sugar.
I love eating candies and ice creams and Coke, and completely love it. I love people.
Yeah.
I love surrounding myself with people. I love running, and I love competition. And I think as I've got more into ultra, if I'm running by myself, I don't have competition. But I truly realized that for whatever reason in my DNA, seriously, so I have a wife and family, and I have a job, and so I don't run all day. But last summer, when I was back in Singapore by myself, my family were overseas traveling, my daughter's at university, and it was a weekend. I had not much to do, and I just woke up at 8 a.m. and I just went out the door, and I kept running till 7 p.m. Just I felt like
Wow.
it was something to do. So what possessed me? I think it's hard to self-describe, but we'll come on to the mindfulness part of it, because that's where I failed at competition until I learned the mind. But I just think, for whatever reason, in my DNA, being out and running, of course, and when I stop, I love the feeling, particularly in Singapore. So, and I think also when I got here, I had quite an easy job. To the employer who employed me then, thank you for paying me to do an easy job. I truly appreciate it. I was able to run. So on my lunch break, I could go for a 2-hour run. Wow. And I just went for a run down the East Coast, which is towards the airport. And I ran 20K. And this was kind of before Google. I got a map. I'm like, hey, wow, if I run another 20K, I'll be 40K round. And so each lunch, I would take a cab to where I finished, do another 20K, get a cab back, till I'd done it all. And I was like, well, let's do it in one go. And
wow.
So a combination of everything. And it was awesome. I loved it.
Incredible. And obviously we'll touch on the mindfulness and how that worked, because that was where I think you suddenly discovered that you can run and it's a physical thing, and then you suddenly discovered after a certain point it's all about the mind. And often we hear and even professional coaches say, apart from listening to your body so you don't injure yourself, is that it's mind over matter. And an endurance race is like, I think some folks will say 80% physical, 20% mental, or 80% mental, 20% physical. What would you say is the split in terms of endurance running, mental to physical? Is it more mental than physical?
Oh yeah, really, maybe I can give a little context to that, because and I know this doesn't make sense. I think it's 100% mental and 100% physical, and you have to find that balance at different points in the race. Clearly, if you're not trained, you can't go and run 100 miles, right? But if you're The reason I found that was, so I was running in Singapore. I tried to run a sub-3 marathon. I got to 3:02 just on training, right? Then I had a pretty bad back issue where I had sciatica in my leg. So I had a numb leg, and I couldn't run for a year and a half. And truly, it sucked. Not running for a year and a half, I realized how strong that addiction was in me, that for a year and a half, I had a numb leg and I couldn't run. So when I got some surgery, I got it fixed. I realized that the surgeon said, you should swim and swim and bike, because, rather than just running, right?
Yeah.
So of course I started triathlon and I was like, oh my God, I want to be good at this. Right?
The addiction kicked in again.
The competition was like triathlon. I was like in my 40s. I was okay. I got pretty decent. And then I did 3 Ironman and I was in like the low 10 hours, 10:20 or 10:30, but I couldn't qualify for Kona. I'm 40 years old. I was 40 then.
Yeah.
Low 10 hours is nice, but it's not qualifying for Kona, except on a tough course, right? And I'll never forget this. I was out training and I was just training with my physicality, right? I thought if I run more, bike more, swim more, I'll get there, right? Just
and do more of it.
Correct. Just do more. Train harder. Like, I was very cynical about mindfulness. I'm like, what, really? You're going to sit and think and that's going to make you faster? I was completely cynical. So for all of you listening, I am not a lifetime mindfulness now practitioner. I was cycling with a group of 20 guys. We're going out for a 100K ride. And I always try to be at the front because I thought I had to be like the strong man, and I wasn't even the fastest. But one day I was at the back and there was 3 guys at the back. I'll call them out on this podcast if they listen. Asad, Brian, and Ian. They were all going slow and let the pack go. And they were all just doing their thing and they were training in a particular way. And then I looked at them. Of the 25 people out cycling that day, 3 had been to Kona. 22 hadn't. Of course, Brian, Asad, and Ian had been to Kona. Right?
They were the 3.
They were the 3. And I'm like, okay. So I talked particularly to Brian and he's like, look, you're just not thinking, right? This is not about just brute force. So he put me in touch with his coach, Grant Giles. And Grant made it very clear to me. He's like, look, Ned, you've run a 3:02 marathon, so you're running solid enough, right? My swimming was pretty poor, like 1:15, 1:20, really poor. And my biking was fine, like low 5 hours, right? He said, but you just don't understand, right? You are wasting so much energy because you don't understand how to correctly think about the use of your mind, the use of your energy, the use of your emotions. And look, I won't take you through the whole story. Grant got me to train. He used to tell me when I trained with him, when I go to the changing room to swim, bike, or run, he had this idea. Unzip your head, Ned. Take out your brain. Put it on the hook. Zip your head back up. Just be in the moment. Count to 10. We talked about this counting.
Yeah.
Long story short, 6 months later, I qualified for Kona and I went to Kona. After 5 years of trying just physically, he gave me mental training about being in the moment, not thinking behind, not thinking ahead, just focus on each stroke, each footstep, just concentrate on what you're doing, be clear. 5 years of trying, nothing. 6 months with Grant, done. So, I don't want to be totally results orientated, but all of a sudden I was like, wow, this works.
Yeah, I mean, you say you don't want to go into the details of with Grant, and I remember that quote. So was it "Get on your bike and turn one pedal"?
Yep.
Which is that famous quote. But talk us through. I love that story of that race where I think it was Korea where you qualified for Kona. Talk us through for a lot of triathletes and endurances. It was for me. It was like a never give up type scenario where you just keep battling till the very end. But talk us through from the swim, the bike, the run, and what was going through, because I think there's a lot that people will learn from yourself, how you went through that and how you used. I like the analogy of zipping out your brain. I've not seen it demonstrated that way, but about being in the now. So talk us through that So Grant gave me quite a few pages of mental training each week. Read this, concentrate. The day of the race, he said, and I'll summarize, Ned, get up at 3:30, whatever time, stand in front of a mirror and get really fired up about how much work you've put in. Like really, really get like energized. Believe every sweat and tear.
and look at yourself in the mirror and really get fired up and believe it's your day, and then calm that down, put it in a little jar in your brain, store it away. We're only going to open it for the last 21 kilometers on the run, because that's where it happened.
The race is won in the run.
21K in the last 21.
The last half marathon, yeah.
He said, Ned, then be very calm, get changed, no excitement, walk to the race start. And what I want you to do, I don't care what's going on around you. You're here just to swim, stroke by stroke. Don't think about the race. And you know what happened? We got to the race start. It was so foggy, we couldn't see the swim. So they said they were going to cancel the swim. And everybody was flapping. I'll never forget. Grant had me do a 2K warm-up run before the swim. Yeah. And he had me do 100 meters of fist swimming. You know, get in the water and swim with your fists.
Yeah.
So you're swimming with no pool. And he said, Ned, I want your brain to be empty. And the crazy thing was, Donato, everyone around me was flapping. Oh, they might cancel the swim. They might cancel this. It's foggy. Grant was like, Ned, it's only you. It's no one else. And he'd train me every day. When I was out cycling in Singapore doing slow threshold training, when somebody went past me on the bike, don't care. Don't chase. It's only you. So I got in the swim, and the fog cleared. I got in the swim, and I truly did it. Every stroke, high elbow, catch, pull, high elbow. Before I knew it, 104 out the swim. And, you know, I was used to coming. I know. I was used to coming out the swim and all the bikes were gone. I got out the swim and my bike was like, what are you doing here? Like, what? What?
There was more bikes around you.
Correct. But I don't even really remember the swim. And then I got on my bike, and, you know, it was a tough course, very hilly, right? And I really started to fade in the last 30, 40K. Most of the bike, I just stayed in my head. The last 30, 40K, I really did lose it a little bit. I was really going backwards. When I got off my bike, this was Ironman Korea. Ironman China had been canceled. So all the slots had been moved over, 2011. Super hilly course. So we had 11 slots in the 40, 45. So I know that's a lot today. When I got off the bike, somebody shouted to me, Ned, you're 33rd in the 40, 44 year age group. So I was 33rd, there's 11 slots. And coming out of transition, there's a steep downhill. And there's a real temptation to hammer down. And as I left transition, I grabbed a bottle of Pepsi and I started charging down the hill in this anger. And suddenly Grant's little thing in my head, Ned, the race hasn't even started yet. It's 21K on the road. Settled down, you know, and this course was super hilly. It was now 32 degrees centigrade. I got through the halfway and I came on the halfway, and I'll honestly, and I feel a little emotional even talking about it now, that little jar, my brain had been calm. That little jar of emotion, of belief, of every, you know, all of your listeners, you know, you get in the pool at 5 a.m. You've done those bike rides, you've ran those miles, you know what it takes. It's hard yards. And I promise you, I sprinted home from 21K out as hard as I could. Of course, I wasn't sprinting, but I was railing. And I was still going, now, go. I ended up running a 3:31, which on the day was the 11th quickest overall, beat some of the pros on the run. And I passed I got my 11th, I came to 11th place with 400 meters to go. And I promise you that last 21K, I don't really remember it. I just remember extreme focus in the mind, my body. Clearly I'd trained hard, right?
Yeah.
But that race, and I stopped and I crossed. And the crazy thing was, Donato, the internet, it was 2011 on a small island off Korea. I couldn't find out what place I came. So I didn't know, and nobody could tell me. So I didn't know if I qualified. I was done. And I kind of had this peace of mind that will probably remain my greatest race ever, because that was so mental, 110% mental. I stayed in my brain the whole way. It was, I feel super proud of that I retained it and did it. And I didn't find out till the evening that I got the 11th spot, and off I went to Kona.
And what happened at that moment when you found out you'd qualified?
So
did you sort of jump up or scream, or did you sort of just, okay?
No.
Which one was it?
I was teary. I was an emotional guy, definitely. Wow. You know, it was emotional in two ways. In that, you know, I tried hard, and, you know, I really put my effort in. I felt, myself, a friend of mine had to go to the organizer tent and find out, and he had a printed piece of paper. He came over to me. He's like, he had the piece of paper, and he's, Ned, how do you think you did? And I'm like, please, no, like, I'm just tell me, like, he's like, do you think you qualify? He kept it going for like 2 minutes. I'm like,
wow, this is torture.
But the crazy thing was, I got 11th. One of my best endurance friends, Arno Selikov, had gone there, guaranteed to qualify. He could swim 55, he could bike 450. Like, he's one of the world's best 50-year-old athletes today. And he blew up on the run, and he didn't get there. And we were having a burger and a beer together, and the guy came over and he hugged me, and you've done it. And we were screaming, and Arno was like, happy for me, sad for him. I ended up sitting that night on the road near the finishing line with another qualifier and a few other people with a few beers. Yeah, crazy happy. I felt super emotional.
And as I say, I mean, to do it in that last 400 meters, you've been going 10 odd hours, and 400 meters is barely 1 minute. It sounds
incredible. Just to give you some perspective, my first half marathon, I went 1:48. My second half marathon, I went 1:42.
Wow. That is not only a negative split, that's like you've started a new race. Absolutely incredible.
But it wouldn't have happened without Grant's mental training of focus, of calm, because I would have. So again, I've given you a long-winded answer to your, is it mental, is it physical? At different times, you have to balance that out. And I think, I'm now 15 years into this mental training, understanding of it, and I'm still learning about it. But at certain times, it's completely mental, and I think it just takes years of practice.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, it almost makes me go with goosebumps when I hear that story, when you mention it on TEDx. I'll leave a link below for everyone who's watching if they want to see Ned's TED Talk, where you go into more detail. It is quite incredible. You mentioned, we'll talk about in terms of what you're doing now. So that was some amazing stuff. There was that mountain bike you done across Mongolia, was it?
Yeah, that was, and I think that's, again, I talked about
completely different again.
I turned up not long after Kona. Again, if you go to Kona, you think you're pretty decent in endurance sports, right? That's a fair.
Yeah.
I turned up for this mountain bike race across Mongolia, 70 of us doing a 1,000K race. These guys are studs. Oh my God. These guys race in 24-hour enduro in the forests, where they get a loop in the forest and they just hammer for 24 hours.
Yeah.
I literally came pretty much last. And, there were big days, like 180K on a mountain bike in the desert. Like
in the desert.
And one day I was last, and I was like 100K from home in the sand. And again, Grant's methodology, even if you're not doing your best, just do it and pedal stroke by pedal. That's where I use that analogy, right? Count 1, 2, go through the sand. Just get away from it. And I think that, because when you project long way to go, you've come a long way. I think that's the real key in endurance sports. And that's what I do so much more now, is when I get lost in it, that count to 10, stay in your mind, try to ignore it. It takes practice, but the hours fly by.
So we'll touch on now that the hot topic, which is very topical with what's going on now. We won't talk the politics of C19, but backyard endurance. Have I got that right? Or backyard ultras?
Backyard ultra.
Backyard ultras. Tell us, Ed. I mean, I have seen all sorts of things going on around the world where people are very creative. And before we started recording, I mentioned that right now I'm in the middle of my lockdown 2.0 10K challenge. But here in the UK, we're allowed out onto the streets, so to speak, so I can do my regular training. But in different parts of the world, there's been different levels of lockdowns to sort of offshooted from that. I remember seeing that lad in, I think it was China, it may have even been Wuhan, where he ran a marathon in his kitchen or in his living room, just round and round and round. I don't know how he measured it, whether his GPS was working or not, but Ed, tell us about backyard.
Yeah, like thank you so much. this is,
You must have a big backyard.
Yes and no. So the moniker, the title is representative of the concept, not of the exact place you have to race. And
Okay.
like I think for endurance, we all go through different phases. So, I went from running marathons to Ironman to I've always done quite a bit of ultra. And at 53, I'm definitely not quite as fast as I used to be. Although in my head, I'm still as fast. Clearly, the watches are lying. But it is.
I agree.
But so backyard ultra, for any of you listening, the world of ultra running is a fringe. Running's a popular sport. Marathon's not a fringe sport; it's mainstream. Ultra running, fringe of marathon, and backyard is a fringe of ultra. So backyard is a fringe of a fringe, right? So for any of you who have ever heard of Lazarus Lake or the Barkley Marathons, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
heard of Barkley, yeah.
So backyard is created by the same gentleman, Lazarus Lake of it.
Yeah.
And here is the concept. You run, depending where you're listening to this metric, you run 4.1 miles, which in metric is 6.7K, every hour, on the hour, until there's only one person left. So just to
last man standing.
Yeah, so there is no finish line. There's no set time or distance. Let's say you run your 6.7K in 48 minutes, which is easy for most of our listeners here today. You have 12 minutes to rest, have a juice, sit down, go to the bathroom. Then at the top of the hour, you all set off again, and you're all equal first. It doesn't matter if you run it in 30 minutes, 48, 58, as long as when the bell goes for the next hour, you start running again, and you complete before the hour's up. You take your rest, doesn't matter how fast. And you keep going to the start line, and some people will get tired until there's only one person left. And it was created by Lazarus Lake. It wasn't started for the quarantine lockdown, but there has been variations of it. He started about 5 or 6 years ago. And the reason it's 4.1 miles, it's 100 miles in 24 hours. So 100 miles divided by 24 is 4.1. So if you do 24, that's 100 miles. And the reason it's called backyard is the race started in the backyard of his farm in Tennessee.
Okay.
And normally just a loop, you could go and do like some backyards right now. Just find a 6.7K loop, go and do it in 50 minutes, then do another one. And it is ridiculously addictive. So I've done it twice now. I did once on my treadmill in June, quarantine. I did 140K, so I did 21 loops on my treadmill in my bedroom. So I did 140K. And then I was very lucky to get selected for the Satellite World Championships. Normally the World Championships in Lazarus Lake's farm, the top 75 in the world get selected to run around his backyard. And to give you an idea of how silly this is, the World Championships in his backyard is called Big Dog's Backyard Ultra, because Lazarus Lake has a dog that is big, and it's called Big, and it's in Big Dog's backyard that you're running. So the World Championship of this fringe sport of a fringe sport is called Big Dog's Backyard Ultra. Now, I select in the world of COVID, he allowed 20 countries to have their best 15 to be selected to do our own backyards in person in our country. So I just did that 2 weeks ago. I ran 22 loops, 147K in Singapore. But I promise you this, Donato, if you want to get into your own head, if you want to understand, because here's the thing, Donato, if I said to you, go and run 6.7K in an hour, super easy, right? Now, hour 5, hour 10, hour 15, hour 20. In the World Championship, Donato, the winner in Belgium, 75 hours, 503K.
Wow. That's incredible.
And I promise you, for me, as I get to loop 18, 19, my brain deteriorates. There's a saying in backyard, it's easy till it's not, right? 6.7K, super easy, right? First hour, second hour, third hour, fourth hour. I was finishing in 50 minutes. As I got to loop 19, 52, 54, 56.
Yeah.
Your brain, like, you have to be in the now. You have to stop thinking about the next lap. Just run. And you're always equal first. As long as you step on the start line, you're always equal first.
Yeah.
And there's only one winner. Everyone else is a loser, but you're equal first. It's a fascinating mental challenge. I love it to pieces. I would recommend everybody to try it. It's so odd. It's so weird. There's no speed. It's just effort. It's so mindful. It's so the moment. So I'm a massive fan. And this might sound totally ridiculous, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you want to watch compelling TV, watch people on their treadmill or running in circles every hour for 6.7K. It is the most captivating TV you'll ever see.
Of course, as soon as everyone's finished watching this, they're going to go straight on Google, YouTube, and start searching for that. But I could see when you're describing it that you're almost going, your mind's going back into that moment. So if we start delving into this mindfulness and being the power of now, and we could do a whole lecture thesis on this, and but obviously here, respectful of your time, Ed, and so on, in terms of what we're doing now, Ned, is that it's important that if we could summarize it in a 5 or 10 minute sort of description, what would you say, Ned, in terms of the mindfulness, the power of now? What are the takeouts, lessons learned, what people should be looking for? If there's a way of summarizing it in a way like that. As I say, there are literally zillions of books out there, and I'm sure there's plenty of content on YouTube. But as a quick bite size, Ned, what would you say?
If you are not thinking about exactly what you're doing, you're not doing it to the best of your abilities. So if you're thinking about how far you've been, how far you have to go, or how tired you are, none of that is helping your current activity. Now means now. I love this phrase. So that's my summary. Just think about it logically. Any thought outside of your current activity, any thought outside of that is wasteful. It doesn't help. I love this phrase, right? The past is gone. It doesn't exist. The future hasn't happened. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Would you spend any time if you're not thinking about the now? You're not living.
Yeah.
That's my exact, and no more an endurance sports, because we've all had tough times in marathons and 10Ks where your brain's like, this hurts, it's hard, and we can stop, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. Like, you're never going to get rid of that. But just think about it logically. That isn't helping you. That isn't what you're there to do. That isn't their excuses. And I hate to use excuses, it's the wrong word, but just focus and concentrate. And I talked about this in my TED Talk. I went for a run one time, and I managed to count to over 2,000. And I ran my fastest ever half marathon. And I don't even remember it. I don't even remember the pain, the effort, the whatever. I was suddenly done. So I summarized it this way: just try to just get rid of all the other thoughts. They're just thoughts. They don't help. And whatever it is, I count to 10. Is it hand movement, my running, my gait, my swim stroke? Do it repeatedly. Practice it hard. It's really hard. It's not easy.
Yeah. You mentioned about the counting to 10. I mean, talk us through that particular where you did do that in the TED Talk. Where explain that to the viewers and listeners.
So when you're doing any activity, it's important that your mind is on it. But to do that, you have to stop having other thoughts. So what I talked about in my TED Talk, and Grant used to train me on this, try to count to 10 with no other thoughts entering your mind. And I don't mean out loud, but just in your head, count, 1, 2, 3, 4. Try to get to 10. It sounds unbelievably easy, but I'm almost sure for your first timers who've done that, other thoughts will come in to your brain. You're ding, 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 ding. No, get them out. Try that. Try to and try it when you're doing your activity.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful. I now, when I'm running, I sometimes listen to podcasts and music, but if I really want to just be in my head, I'll count. I'll get to thousands. I'll get to 5,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
And I'll keep doing it. And because I don't need to think about running so much anymore, because I've done it for 30 years, right?
So, yeah. It's become a habit.
Unconscious competence, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you count to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I was going a bit too fast there. One, two.
Donato, definitely try it. Next time you go out for a run, just try it. It took me 8 to get to 10. Like, it seems, and you could change the 1 to 10 to, arm up, arm down, arm up, arm down, arm up, whatever it is in your form, whatever it is, your footsteps. Count your footsteps. Beautiful way of doing it, right? But keep that mind clear.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, we could We could talk for hours and hours, couldn't we, Ned, with this? And maybe we'll bring you back on a second one. But something as a little bit of a surprise for you, Ned, that I forgot to mention on these podcasts. There's a bit of fun as a sort of closing the interview. You've heard of the Fast and Furious movies?
I have.
Yeah, so obviously you're a fast and furious kind of guy, having qualified for Kona. So what I do is I have 5 random questions. It's just a yes, no, or which one you want to choose. It's all very random. Something that I've put together sort of more applicable to yourself, having read a bit of background and obviously in terms of what we do. But I've called it the Fast, Five and Furious. So it's just 5 questions. And it's just pretty fast firing, so just answer the first thing that comes to your mind as I go through these. So question number 1, Singapore sling or pint of beer?
Oh, pint of beer. I'm not that sophisticated.
Okay. Facebook or Instagram?
I'm too old for Instagram, so Facebook.
Facebook. Would you say which one is the tougher to do, a fast 5K or a 50K?
Oh, a fast 5K every time. 5K suck every step of the way. 50Ks, you have enough time to beat 5Ks. I do them a lot. I love them, but oh my God, I would say a hard 5K is one of the hardest things in running.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Pizza or noodles?
Oh, noodles. I don't even like.
And last but not least, you mentioned you like the sugar. Cupcake or cheesecake?
Oh, wow, that's tough because if you'd said ice cream, I'm all over it, but I would go with cheesecake.
Cheesecake, brilliant. That is absolutely fabulous, Ned. It's been an absolute joy speaking with you. And thank you so much, as I say, thank you so much for your time coming on this show and sharing your knowledge and experience and the power of now and mindfulness here with everybody. So thank you so much for your time, Ned. And I'm sure we'll see you soon again. So thank you.
Donato, thank you so much. I really appreciate it talking to you. I love your enthusiasm as well. And maybe one day after lockdown, we shall go for a run together. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I would very much look forward to that. I've had so many people who watch this channel over in the Far East and Singapore, Hong Kong, who said, oh, come on over, Indonesia. I said, well, I'd love to. But who knows what may happen. The joys of the world. It is a much smaller place than we're. Thank you so much, Ned. All the best to you and enjoy your pints of beer in Singapore.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.